Tell me about the amalgamated houses when they were built and
The
who built them.
amalgamated housing, I bought an apartment there, and I had 3 rooms in it, and it was nice because it was close to the store. So I had a chance to look after my family, and I took my youngest brother, who was my pride and joy, and I put him in to work with me in the Orchard Street store. Now if you pass the store, it's no longer at 129 Orchard Street, but it is at 137 Orchard Street. Because I also opened the store on Broadway. This is from Orchard Street.
Hold
98.
Can you hold them?
And the interesting part is how low wages were. For 9 people, I paid $220 some odd dollars. So the dollar was very, very valuable, and people had very little of it.
When did you open this store?
I opened the store in the lower 1930s.
Okay.
Are we breaking for a minute?
Yeah.
The store was owned by Kosovo and Draper. And they had a store on 14th Street, corner 2nd Avenue. And they were selling the gangsters and all the toughies. They found out that they can't do business on Orchard Street the way they were doing on 14th Street. So they decided to sell it, to give it up. And they took the merchandise out and they sold me the fixtures for $300. And I opened the store there. That was my first venture into being a storekeeper. It was there that I learned the difficulty of buying and selling and make sure that the customer got money's worth and that they were treated ethically. That was my way of doing business. It happened later on in England. And my brother was in the store and we were running it. I decided I'd like to open a store where customers spend freely and they don't look for bargains as much. So I found a store that used to be a menswear store on Broadway near 37 and 38th Street, near Mason. And I rented it and I opened the store the first year I was married. So I had the 2 stores, but I still operated Orchard Street. And it became more difficult to run Broadway and Orchard Street. And my brother was running Broadway, so I turned over the store to him, and I kept some of the capital to use up for the Broadway store. And that's how I became a Broadway businessman. And that's a story in itself, but I won't trouble you because you're interested in Orchard Street.
Where did you used to go eat when you were working at the store?
We used to go to Atlas for lunch. And by then I had the family, so breakfast and supper I'd eat home. And my mother used to take care of the whole family, including me.
When you go into Ratner's, did you have one waiter that you knew? You knew everybody?
Usually I liked 1 or 2 waiters more. And the atmosphere was very, very conducive because most of the people there were Jewish. They didn't sell any meat. Everything was kosher. Not that I was strict about it, but I couldn't see myself eat bacon. That was nothing for me. So I'd have cotton cheese with a potato because I grew up on potatoes in Lithuania during World War I. On a very special day, we would have a piece of herring. And most of the days it was black bread.
Yeah, wait a minute. The white bread is very important. You have to get white bread on camera.
Once in a great while I'd eat a piece of fish. Once in a while I'd eat a piece of herring. But it wasn't a very wide menu as far as I was concerned.
But you went there for the
I went there to
The
eat.
Gestalt, or the place everybody you work with that was down there?
People knew. On Orchard Street, they would call me Mr. Muttle. Muttle was my Jewish name. It comes from Mordecai. And because I was known as Mr. Muttle, and later I got married, they called my wife Mrs. Muttle.
Did you go to the Yiddish theater at all?
Sure, that was the only place I really enjoyed myself. Of course, there were 4 Jewish newspapers. The Forward, the Day, the Journal, and the Freiheit. They were all, the Forward was a worker newspaper. The Day was the only businessman newspaper. And the other newspapers were for the Orthodox and for the radicals, communists. So my life was busy with the Jewish communication that I was able to have and learn a little bit of English at the same time.
Where did you learn the English?
That's a funny story in itself. When I lived in Brooklyn, before I married my wife, I used to go, first I went to public school there, and I graduated. Then I was tried to go to high school. And the high school there was on Pennsylvania Avenue. And the first night I go to class, the teacher comes in and he says, I'm sure there is at least one of you here, or probably more than one. For all the years that I've been teaching, I've always had one or more than one, whose name is Cohen. And sure enough, 2 people raised their hand. He said, the reason I tell you this name, I want you to remember, it'll help to remind you of the 4 principal gases, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. Well, that was all too much for me. And after a couple of nights, because I could only go to night high school. The daytime I was working. So I decided it was too much of a grind. Oh, he traveled back and forth.
Start again about the Yiddish theater. Tell me and say that you used to like to go to...
The nicest, the most important Yiddish theater was Schwartz's art theater. Schwartz was the one who was running it. He was a very famous actor. And then there was maybe a half a dozen other theaters all strung on the east side, mostly on 2nd Avenue. One was on 2nd Avenue and Houston Street. The only place I was at home because I couldn't understand.
After working a long day, what did it mean for you to go to the theater at night?
Well, I had to, because I wanted to get some diversion.
And what were the plays, what were the stories that they showed on the theater? Was it a reflection of your life?
A reflection of all the lives of the people on the east side. And it was also in the papers. For example, the Forward had a column called the Bintel Brief. What does that mean? A bundle of letters. The letters were all complaints by women, mostly that their husband was not treating them well, that their children, all. And that was what the Forward was famous for. The Day, on the other hand, had a different mix, because it catered to business people. So that suited me most.
Do some of the people who were on
Ben
stage then?
Tomaszewski was one of the comedians, and one of the well-known actresses was Molly Pickett. And there was others. Tomaszewski, a lot of years.
It sounds like it was a very exciting time to be living down here.
Very exciting.